Reader's Theater was developed in Europe during World War II because everybody was off to war, but you still needed entertainment. So the community decided that they would write their plays and they would depend more on what was said rather than on memorization and a big fancy set. Now this is a big fancy set. We've been testing Reader's Theater with farm groups to encourage farmers and their families to make healthy and safe choices for the past 4 years. And we've done this through a Centers for Disease Control grant. So this was your tax dollars at work so far, and I think it's pretty good so far. We'll see how the next group does when they come up. I'm sure they'll do equally well. But I've talked to some of you, and I know that you're not engaged in farming at all. So if I could see a show of hands, who in here is from a farm family? All right, well that's most folks. The rest of you folks are going to learn a lot about farming just as you just did. It's a very dangerous occupation. It's wonderful. It's a great way to grow up. I grew up on a farm in Woodford County, and I have brothers and sisters who've all farmed. I'm the only renegade in the family who ran away to college and became something else other than a farmer. So, and now I'm doing this, so I guess I wasn't too far removed from it. But they talked about a lot of things here, and I'd like to get a little bit of input back from the crowd, because one of the things that we found out with our dinner theaters is that when people talk to each other about what happened up on the stage, you guys tend to make some good changes. So one of the things, and Debbie, my colleague over there, raise your hand, Debbie, because she's the other person who helped develop the theaters to begin with. When we drove up today, I-75 was closed, and we had to take 25 from Lexington on. Let me tell you, I am so glad I've outlived my car sick days, because that road just forever and ever. So, but we got here anyway. But the ground is steep, and I know there's a lot of tractor rollovers in this part of our state. Tractor rollovers and four-wheeler rollovers on farms are deadly, and very few people survive the tractor rollovers. So how many in here have ever had a tractor rollover? Jerry, I kind of thought maybe you might be the guy who had experienced everything you were talking about up here. So
They were all true stories, actually.
They were all true stories?
Yes, they were.
Okay, so those of you back there, this was not fiction, this was fact with a massage, I think. And so the stories that you heard do come from real stories from real farmers, so they're pretty powerful. The things that happen to your friends and neighbors they happen to a farmer somewhere. So I just kind of want to know, how many of you guys have a tractor without a roll bar? Shame on you. Do you know you can get paid? How many of you all have a Christmas list? Okay. For those of you in the families of those people who just raised their hand, you can outfit that tractor for about $600 with a roll bar, which is a whole lot cheaper and a whole lot happier than a funeral. So most of the time when you roll those tractors, you don't stand around and get to talk about it too much afterwards. So that's one thing you might want to put on your Christmas list is a roll bar. And for those of you, how many of you have the four-wheelers on your farm? Okay, I see a bunch of 4-H'ers back there with their hands up back there too. How many of you have passengers on your four-wheelers when you ride them? Oh, see, nobody wants to admit to that, do they? Oh, liar, pants on fire, because I know most of you do out there. I come from a farm family. I know what happens out there. I also know that that's a really good way to get injured or killed. So one seat, one rider. If you have the side-by-sides and you think you're safe, you're not safe at all, because those things will tip, won't they? Just like the tractors will tip. So that's another area. So if you have those, you might want to rethink some of the things you're doing out there on the farm with them. Now, how many livestock farmers do we have here? Cattlemen. Okay, I was raised on Black Angus cattle. I didn't even know you could buy meat in the store until I married. And then it doesn't taste like what I grew up with. So I'm big on that. Now, he talked about getting a squeeze chute and better livestock handling facilities. Large animals are a leading way that farmers in Kentucky are injured or killed also. So when you think you can outrun a cow, you can't outrun a cow. I spend a lot of time in Tennessee, and they tell us you can't outrun a bear. Not that I'm going to try to outrun a bear. But if I see the bear first, I'm gonna run in the opposite direction before he even sees me. But I know fully well you cannot outrun a cow. And I want to share a little story with you here because I'm a Woodford County girl. But I spent a lot of time in Boone County back in the 60s when I was a lot younger because I was a 4-H member. And I was, my primary project was a horse project. So I came to Walton, Kentucky, and I paid Pat Scott $500 for a little bitty Appaloosa horse. And Pat found out that I didn't have a very good 4-H project leader or a project in Woodford County. You'd think that's a horse country that would be really supportive, but we really didn't have the project. So she took me under her wing and she said, you come up here to Boone County, and I spent a lot of time out there on the MBRS farm. And she taught me a lot about riding and things like that. But she also taught me a lot about safety and being safe around the animals and everything. She was always very safety conscious. So that's my Boone County connection, was back to the horse project. And I always want to say something nice about 4-H, because 4-H is the best thing to happen to any child in America. So, there we go. I was in 4-H until they literally kicked me out when I was a freshman at UK. So, and then I went home and I said, shoot, that's over. What else can I do? So, but with Pat's help and teaching me all the things that she did, her patience with me and Russ Ryan and Jimmy and Paula Dunn, those are the, we kind of all ran around together. I was a 1968 State Horse Project champion. And I have Pat to thank for that. So I just want to give a big shout out. I know that's not what I'm supposed to talk about, but I would feel really bad if I didn't give the shout out to Boone County 4-H and what they meant to me, the little Woodford County girl in my life. So back to our theater, and I'm watching my time. So I do want to say it's kind of hard to engage people when it's this big a crowd. Usually at our theaters we have like 75 people. But I want to know, does anybody have a story they would like to share about a close call out on your farm? Any brave people in the audience? Because these 3 guys have already shared all their close stories. Or at least some of them.
I'll share.
Okay. Can you share with the microphone?
I don't.
Oh, you got Mike. Is this a plant?
Well, I'm part of the next skit.
Oh, okay.
Well, this was Good Friday about a year and a half ago, and my son, I was at work, my husband was at work, and my son decided he was going to go ride 4-wheelers with friends. Not wearing a helmet, going way too fast. Flipped the 4-wheeler. One of the young men that was riding with him found Brent, actually ran to a neighbor's, flagged someone down, couldn't get his cell phone to work, and had to go get help. He got help, came back, and Brent was laying there, and he had fluid coming out his ears, and it wasn't good at all. And when they got the ambulance for Petersburg to come, and all of this was obviously going on, and another young man that was friends said that there was a call me on my phone at work and said that somebody's been in an accident down at the farm. I don't know who it is, but I'll try to find out. So in the meantime, I'm panicking and I'm calling Brent. Brent doesn't answer. And then finally the young man that was with him did answer Brent's phone and said that the ambulance was on its way. They were coming to get him. When they got there, we know the fire chief, he decided to call air care. So Brent had an air care ride to UC Hospital. They took it up to, they flew him there, and I got a phone call, I called back on Brent's phone, talked to the fire chief. He said what was going on. I grabbed my husband, he also works in the same place I do, and we took off and went straight over to UC. We beat the helicopter there. And obviously it was the scariest I'd ever been. I thought I was gonna lose my son. But I hope he's, after having a concussion and a very close call for quite a few hours, we have him back in our life today. We're very, very fortunate, and more importantly, he's, I believe, learned a lesson in regards to that. Yeah.
He's shaking his head, yes. I'm sure this is the son right here. You, Brent?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad you had a good outcome from that. It only takes a second for things to go wrong. And when we're young, we think we're invincible. And as we grow older, we think we're incapable sometimes. But we do learn if we live through those hard lessons. And it's better to learn through somebody else's experience, as unfortunate as that experience is. But to learn from other people so we might prevent those kind of things in our own families. So I know that was a hard story to tell. I appreciate you telling it to us. You also brought up one other thing, and I really want to point this out. And this isn't just for the farm people, but especially for the farm people. The importance of communication. How many of you have a cell phone on you tonight? Wow. Okay, don't turn those on right now. Listen to me. Don't be watching stuff. The thing about farming is, and I've done this as a profession for 27 years now. My specialty is agricultural health. Not the cattle, not the pigs, not the crops, but the people. So for 27 years, I've listened to stories like this. We've experienced them in my own family. We've done a lot of education with people, and people still tend to do the same thing over and over and over again. So I know everybody has cell phones now, but for those of you on a farm, did those cell phones work in every place on your farm? Because you'll find you have dead spots. And they're called dead spots because that might be where your family member finds you in that shape if you have some kind of a mishap out on the farm. So what we suggest to people is you develop a call-in system. And you're going, I don't want a call-in system. This will take time, you know. It is time well spent. So let your significant other somewhere know where you're going to be that day on the farm. If you change those plans, you need to let that person know that you've changed your plans. You need to call in every hour or two and say, this is what time I'm expected to be back. If you're not going to be back, if the baler breaks down and you're sitting there trying to repair something, let them know. Because it's usually the family member that finds you laying in that field somewhere. And it's a bad outcome because there's what they call a golden hour of opportunity. When an injury occurs, and this is what we call it in the nursing profession and health professions, it's that golden hour. You have 1 hour at max to get that person where they need to be and get them treated, or you'll lose them. And that's not a lot of time. Sometimes if you're in a remote place, it takes an hour just for the helicopter to get there and get you back. So if you only take one thing away tonight, I want you to do that. It costs absolutely nothing to do this. So no investment, but maybe 5 minutes of your time a day. So that would be another takeaway message. I think, anything else you need me to talk about up here? See, they wrote these skits. These plays, I didn't write these. They borrowed a little bit from a couple of things from the ones that we have written. But they got together as a group and they decided what you all needed to hear. Because they want to take care of each other. They want to take care of you. So, you know, farmers are all about neighbors helping neighbors. So the primary purpose of tonight is for the neighbors to help the neighbors. So take these stories to heart. These are your people right here. And learn from each other. And I'll be back up after this next one that Jerry's going to tell you about.